So first, I'd like to say thank you to Campo Sodaji. Thank you for taking a long flight from China to here, so we all have a chance to sit here and listen to his speech. So thank you. So I came from Hong Kong, and I have been studying the Tibetan Buddhism for more than 20 years since I was a kid, affected by my mom. So I studied the Tibetan Buddhism not for a specific goals, but for a strong will. It's like I'm always trying to purchase an approach to my inner, the inner peace. So my question here is, I'm wondering, what should I do, or how can I do to improve myself, or to achieve a better accomplishment, or at least make a bigger improvement? Thank you, and that's my question.
당아서 덕바침부 추원의 신이나 드네 지 랑 직바 마연바 드네 연등 그 샤와 강다 강치나 로아센션 탐스라 지 판바 드네 네스급 그 판바던 타득 대와 단 대양 덕바도 공송나 삼교 드네 그 삼로가 상네 양 연등 그 대시 드네 지 샤와양 다르게 된잡드는 그 점지 rangka tarika semkham layana shmonda mandrawaga tene dekchit dayongre chere jena ngatsu dingmar to ta parchir thoma dana to so dakton da nirwan defteni kirongre tayna ten shok tawada dis mandrata yore ta yenaya tonga sanga dingmar thamche kun jongkong to dakasonre teyendi jamphang tarika semdo ane yanda lojong shikidina tene nyamleng tarika tene 다지 야라 동동단의 대양 용제 대전단의 그 샤와 되고요. 잔라야 판바다리 점지 저 용제 미래 전다라나 소소라 니바몽은 돈jon제.
As a Mahayana practitioners, I think what would be useful to really improve our practices and so on is first of all really try to think more about benefiting to others. You try to cultivate this kind of intention or motivation that I wanted to maximize my benefit to all other sentient beings, and giving them help with their temporary need as well as the long-term need, which is attaining enlightenment. If you have set yourself with this kind of attitude, I think it will be useful. And then one of the advantages about constantly thinking about the happiness of other sentient beings is it will bring you actually much stronger in terms of attitude. Your mind, have a much more resilient experience when you care more about others' needs. We kind of constantly notice that the majority of the suffering has come through this eccentric, self-centered approach. This constant self-cherishing thought brings us many problems. Maybe some Westerners, they would not agree with that. But from our experience, we've realized that, constantly thinking about our own happiness, it brings more suffering. So if you really kind of transform that attitude and constantly focusing on the other's happiness, shifting from your own need to really try to fulfill the other's need, and then you will really experience this kind of good result for your practices. And it also brings more calm to your mind in general. So since we have a limited amount of time, I wanted to really make sure that you ask, a simple, straightforward question. I will also try to answer in the most kind of straightforward way. This will help more people to ask questions. Please raise your hand if you have a question.
Yeah, my question is, in the beginning you talked about technology, modern technology, and how it's increasing and it's very important today. And yet thousands and thousands of students are coming to study with you Tibetan Buddhism. Why do you think so many students would study Tibetan Buddhism and not want to study technology in the modern world?
산을 롭좀 치고 매제나 산을 롭좀 치고 요래. 세레제나 드니 다 당상 아주 베나 곰바가 나이나 자가 이 정마가 다 심치 때 롭좀 치고데 다 뇌나야 산을 그 락차다리 배슈시다나 드니 지 추처샤나야 탑동다리 시고요래. 대전다나 다가 다 산을 담제로간다나 그 페이스북에 트위터에 드니 지 다 랑전데 대 랑전 그 카버지 내조 탐치 외쇼양 시권데 내라 로종 시권데 다 레다는 이나 땡이 뜻다 대 산이 코나가 가서 로아면 그 돈덕대 탑치 용거요 말에 그래서는 사르 야르 제시 제가네 근데 쇼무보 야르 제시 제가 나 셈나 뇽자 모스 요래 디네 끝나 다 추데라 때네나 그런서 데킨 소르티고 나데 디르타스리
So there are two answers to this question. The first answer about your comment about the modern technology, then still people go to study with him. He said, oh yeah, we do study a lot about science and technology because we use technology for live broadcasting our teachings. We use Facebook, we use Twitter. So it's not just like we're studying Buddhism. We study and we use modern technology, so don't worry about that. Then the answer to the actual question is, I agree that although we can make so much improvement in terms of scientific research, scientific result, there's no doubt it will bring benefit for the understanding about physical, like arenas and the matters and so on. At the material level, the science can really bring this benefit. But the problems, I think, in our kind of inner problem, if you like, or the problems associated with our mind, the development of science does not directly correspond to this. People still have a stress, even actually bring more technological improvement and progress, sometimes bring more inner confusion and problem. And the kind of inner problems are not addressed by the science. Therefore, people seek Dharma or religious teaching to overcome their suffering.
Thanks so much. I am a PhD student and come from China, and I major in liver fibrosis. Because of this major, liver fibrosis.
Okay, liver.
Yeah. And because of this major, I have to do a lot of animal experiments. Okay. And because I am a Buddhist, I also follow the Buddha. Every time when I do these experiments, I feel very suffering. And also I feel I don't have the critical mind. Because I think everyone makes a lot of efforts doing these researches. So I just confused that whether I suitable for research, and sometimes I wondering whether can I just change my major, such as philosophy, because it can benefit more people, and but I just confused. So could you give me some suggestions for my future? Thanks a lot.
Kate kapshok jir go mergo so rala rala yore. Kate tango nawa sanji bazi kungoni na semsing chok jana todo tandang dba yore. Yena kate rang kapshok de jirji ko korkum mes pona tela yang tari shahashi tene shingang do ngi ta tenja yore. Tene aji kapshok de rang jirna ga samje na yang ta tekter shina yang rimere. So de tene rang rikpa ga takshi jita na ta ta tinda shina gare ma so zema nge teran dane zena yang tari ga ta jimsan dan damba ze takuyon mare ngarani ngoni.
So regarding changing your field, Rinpoche said that you have to make the decision. In Buddhism, if you are really killing animals, of course you engage in many sins. But if you're not killing animals, but if you sometimes have to engage in activities to do with animal, there are certain, like rituals for doing confession, reciting mantras to purify your negative deeds. There are some, teachings and practices you can do. But regarding choosing your field, That I think you will be the best suited to make that decision. You can rely on logic, reasons, what is best for you. And I may not be the best person to give you this advice because I really do not have the entire information at hand.
Just I'm going to ask the question in English. So my question is, so lots of times when I've gone to Buddhist teachings, there's this mention of developing a sense of peace of mind, right? So my question to Khenpo-la is, do you think that there is a universal sense of peace of mind, or that people, develop their individual as well as maybe a communal sense of peace of mind? But basically, if I were to ask, what does a sense of peace of mind mean to Khenpo-la, can he talk more about that?
Shirtungo, semke jodi na tate marang susunguna yana susena marang susugo tene le jaga yo mare. Tene le manjane zonte tene tsama yang tene kwale tsama te top nyamda top gone na pekalere. Tene zamolungo musosogo perna tene 다 지금 토탕이나 토탕 때라더니 가래 때 토탕 때 콜라 저때 때게요래 가와 때게요래 가래 때라 토탕 때 콜라 셈나나 야때 가와 때게 토고요 말에 되는 가서 반저리나 안자라 되니 지 잘하다 티모 그냥 가래라 때게요래 가래라 때게요 말에 때에나 나추고요 뭐 요도 쪽라 때게거나 백깔레래 이나야 뭐 망체사자 다 당산에 나가 수 잔악 버셔네 있네나 로총 mambo tene ta sowa go no shi yo na dana de jin da na chi yang tene ta lega ga na ya phera chi ne timo yin ne na ta na chu ma jang ko pe ko ha le ba ta re semna dengri yo ne ta jang ga trok cha go sam na mo yo na jima na chu jang chi ron de tene jing ji ting go sha mo zo dana har tene ya dong ne tam da ge yang na tene sem pe so po chi yo na ten da pe mambo yo de de chi jang the Zen Zangin Mar, Tonga Sana Yonde, no Shona Yante, Dana, Monchesaga, not you, Ningunina, Unitane, Jete, the Pet Tokyo Sang.
So the question about the peace of mind and how is it related to individuals or the universal experience. As a Buddhist, we believe in like individuals who have a different karmic, if you like, consequences. We all have a different karmic background, if you like. And because of that, our need is different. And one cannot provide a general solution that will really fulfill the need of all of the people. So from that point of view, like a more individual. And why we say it's like an individual-based approach, it's because you can see that the economic development brings happiness to certain people, and for certain people it brings negative impact, right? Because our need is different. Likewise, like say money or any other product, we don't have a universal appreciation. That's because the effect of the product, is different to different individuals. So that's my answer. Regarding, Buddhist approach to peace of mind, of course, Buddhist teaching wouldn't be suitable to all the people. I agree with that. But a certain, type of people, especially among the young, people who are really stressed out by the modern society, they found it very useful. I had experience of talking to youngsters in different places. They were really suicidal before because of the stress from their career, competition in their market, and so on. But then, having started Buddhism and continually practicing it, and they later reported me back that their mental kind of strength is much stronger now. And the Buddhist teaching and their practices have a good result on them. So that's only my answer.
My question is, when you take care of people in suffering, so how can you help yourself to be not trapped by
they're suffering, so you overburden yourself that you become stressed and depressed as well. And is there any way to help ourselves to avoid that kind of situation, or maybe not avoid, just to deal with it?
Serdong pena nge zamba la rokche ne na te di rokche ki jerum ko chot ngarang la na semna dungor te yore re ta na yinna ya atsu thaba chimbur kamna tene dajin nyam da jewa janji dungor ta dakkal ta ri dewa te san la jin ze te na janji dungor te dakkal leng ji ni na rangi dungor me par ma sa ta ga ta janji dungor te ya na ta chungun ro ji ta na 대전도는 렌지 등을 때는 매번 로죠. 다 된자 연구. 대인이나 저 견든 거, 다 sem나 년지 전부 할레바 년지 전부 요사소이나 되는 장라 년지 그것도는 랑아 등을 용례만 보세요. 대 마음 발라 자나로 그럼 그것도 랑아 등을 용지도 배 용용을 삼고요. 대란 저게 오늘 고금도 하고.
So I really didn't understand the question in kind of what context you're talking about this. Generally speaking, in the Buddhist tradition, we have this exchange of oneself with others, or the taking others' suffering upon oneself. This is a unique instruction in the mind training teaching, in which the helper is amazing, compassionate being, and when he or she feels compassion to the person who's going through illness and so on, then they use that kind of opportunity to practice Dharma, to really visualize and taking the other's suffering upon oneself. So they're teaching that we do to try to reduce the sufferings on others. And that's one way of dealing with this kind of difficult situation. Then, but not that many people, in my understanding, really go into suffering because of somebody else going through suffering. So I really didn't understand the context in which you are talking about this. From my experience, I get actually delightness. I'm happy when I'm able to help others. For example, I give scholarship to others. So when I give scholarship to this, like impoverished student, and they get really excited and happy, and they're really doing well, and I get happiness out of observing that. That's my experience.
So let's take an example. If you're taking care of your parents, like say I take care of my father, he's very sick, he feels bad, and therefore I feel bad because I'm trying to take care of him. I want him to feel better, but I can't fix it, right? So this is the feeling, like a bad feeling of suffering when somebody else is also sick or suffering, that maybe a lot of us, if we're taking care of our family, we can feel that way, too sad about it, rather than happy to be taken care of.
I see.
Tate ngasunan ko pena kirga nan cheze yora. Tate ndre na te dengor te chu pena karezer ko. Ta chu pena nyamlemba chu ihwazu yene ta dengor te para shangchu kungor jir chena da tendra na chu ka na yore. Tate mayen ba chu masu na chu go wang shene na te pama nane inna pamar gane paman chene na ten khurwa ga chunyi tsre te rang chi dig man de yon mare zo to tela tari ga yar nimkar shi jo to so re ta nimkar te ya po shene na tene rang gi ding te yon ta mar ba jin yon re ka te tela nimkar ma shi na rang dig na tang de tela pamba man de sam.
So in Buddhist practice, when we do the bodhicitta practices, when we see others experiencing suffering from birth, aging, illness, and so on, we use this kind of experience really to remind us the sufferings of the samsara. So for the Mahayana practitioners, they would use this kind of experiences really for your spiritual practices. So that's one example. But for others, really, as a Buddhist, what we have to do is to overcome the stress. We have to accept the reality of the samsara. worldly, what you call in English, not the samsara. How would you translate samsara into English? Cyclist, yeah, existence. And you have to accept that we are all basically age. We all experience, aging, illness, death. That's a reality. There's nothing we can do about it. So accepting that, maybe reduce your stress, and then try to really do your best to give care. And when you give care and when you make improvements, that maybe brings some kind of pleasure or delightfulness for doing that. So that may be, I think, approach.
You
can ask the two questions together. I'll also...
first of all, thank you very much for the great talk. And also I want to thank you for helping me become a Buddhist. Like over 10 years ago, I read the book of 智海浪花, Wisdom Ocean, the wave of the Wisdom Ocean. And at that time I was preparing, and that helps me to become a Buddhist. I want to thank you for that. And currently I am a researcher as well as a Buddhist. I am a neuroscientist and biomedical engineer. And also I'm practicing meditation every day. So I would like to have your advice on two things. One, as a researcher, in the research tradition, people try to avoid you being a judge as well as a player. So how would you like to comment and give us advice from the research point of view of avoiding this situation?
Hi, I'm a Buddhist, and I just came back from India 2 weeks ago. So I was doing a pilgrimage trip to Bulgaria and Kushinagar. And everyone knows that Buddha came originally from India, and then he was propagating Dharma in India. But we know that Buddhism is almost non-existent in India anymore. And you also mentioned in the talk just now that many Tibetans, they live in India nowadays, and they have very very little of interaction with the local Indians. So I'm just curious, so what is the biggest challenge in propagating Buddhism in India? Why is it, it came from India, but why is it so hard to bring it back?
Back to your answer. As a researcher, you can be critical thinking. You can, research a subject versus object. You don't have to really make any kind of a role in between by Buddhist teaching. You don't have to rely on compassion or anything. In this kind of field of science, you can be, as critical as you can, because your ultimate goal is to benefit the humanity. Recently, I visited a research lab, especially focusing on neuroscience. And the discovery is amazing because we found out the neurons, like 1,000 of neurons in a single head. And because of this discovery, they also bring, cure to certain neuro disease and so on. So for that, you don't have to, be influenced by your Buddhist teaching because your ultimate goal is benefiting many people. And the answer to our other friend is, yes, you're right. indigenous Indian Buddhist teaching is like really almost like wiped out in India. That's true, almost like non-exist. Then recently the trend is now more and more Indians are studying Tibetan Buddhism. So I think the spread of the Tibetan Buddhism to the Indian community or the society is growing. That's very clear. And also, not only Tibetan Buddhism, I think in the future in India, the Buddhism from the Sri Lanka, Thailand, from Burma, and some of the Mahayana teaching will gradually maybe go back to its root, to India. So this indigenous form of Indian Buddhism may not resurface again, but new form of Buddhist teaching may go back to and grow in India, and that's my feeling.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much, Rinpoche, for answering my question. It was mostly answered already. This is on the topic of what this young lady and someone else referred to about not being too wrapped up in the suffering of someone you're caring for. And I happen to be in a profession that involves touch. It's working with the body. And I find that this is a constant question. And one thinks it's physical, but in fact, in my years of experience, you're really massaging someone's mind more than their body. And so one is sometimes, I hate to use this word, but it's the best that comes to mind, almost absorbing the suffering that you're touching if you are not vigilant and very clear in your mind. And even with the best of intentions, sometimes at the end of the intention's easier at the beginning of the week, and it might be by the end of a very busy week. One can feel quite challenged, if physically or energetic. You almost have to be an energetic athlete or a mental athlete more than a physical athlete. I think people in other professions, probably nursing and physical therapy and many other physically oriented professions, have this experience. It is the mind, but it's like there's a physical component that, it might show up physically, subconsciously somehow. It's a little tricky to manage. I will say that I've had the good fortune to practice with Lama Sonam and Khenpo Chopel and other teachers, and it's been amazing to me the actual physical result from mental practice, for lack of a better word, like the quality of my contact with clients. So it's been very interesting. But it's a constant practice for those of us in this profession long term. So if any more advice, or if that clarifies some of the question. Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
지 만바지 기존 잠보는 거 떠나 하 레바가 또 semche mombola 또 판토고 요래 대나 다 저런 주바지 나다가 주바 마얀바 가서 대란다나 레니 소소고 mom보시고 다 대란 저바 탐식을 담아 있는 초바래 근데 레니 소소고 mom보시고나 대 오네가 다 랑글 레카다 강 옛나라 대네 아잔라 판바 톱나 대 안가 당보래 가티 즉 판밥적 지금 니바다 지시 된자 매나양 드네 소도 어잔라 노밤 시키도 가르침보리 마수 나추고 탁바 침보 추지지도 드네 어잔라 판바디 다리 추다나 어잔라 노바디 추마요 되게 요래 되나 다 지금 추마즈이나 드네 어잔라다 타나 금니지나라는 삼바는 딱바가 신이나 야보래 대당 자바가 마수 레네 강당 강이나라 다 잔라 판반도 가르침보리 시집고 다 노쇼고 따와이나 지 장데 소원든 요원도 지금 와투스타와 토모 마인 바즈리 대열 거래 다 장데 소메네나 되네 잔데 양로도 고 말했다나 디능거 되네 잔판도 와투 견도 다지 샘토고 말진나 되네 장라양나 되네 럼지 디다리요 다 판바침보즈 좀 정용이 진행래
그래서 I appreciate your comment. The working in a massage, I think a field, is really very useful. It's a form of medical practice. I actually received some massage on my back when I had a back problem, and it's really helpful. It relieves my suffering. From a Mahayana point of view, doctors or any profession which really delivers direct benefit to our client and customer is a form of Dharma practices. And therefore, what you do is bring direct, I think, relief of sufferings on others. And if you do this with the proper intention, it's amazing practices. I'm saying this to the doctors, a lot of you, these people here are in a kind of very good field, meaning that your practices bring benefit rather than any harm to the human society, including giving massage and so on. So which is really a great profession, and I really admire that. Because I can maybe sum up my talk on this answer. The Buddhist teaching and the philosophy can be summed up in two words. You constantly try to help others, bring benefit to others. That's what we have to do. And what we don't do is bring harm to others. So if you wanted to determine whether you're following Buddhist teaching or not, you can use these two the criterions. If you and your work are helping others, well, that's you're doing the right thing. If if you and your work is harming others, we have to stop that and try to change that. So in essence, Dharma practice is basically to bring benefit to others. So we have 4 minutes left, so we'll have the final question.
Different ways of studying the Dharma. Like when we're just studying things ourselves based on our own research, we may arrive at an understanding of a philosophical treatise, and even if it's just Mahayana, like Dotsini Tekpa, it might have a different understanding of it than the tradition does because we research it ourselves, study many different things, and sometimes I have some doubts, like when it comes to practice, is it possible to really gain certainty in the view? Is it possible to get certainty in the view or really use this understanding to tame afflictive emotions if it's something that I just arrived at through my own research instead of it being something that came from a lineage of interpretation?
Your own kind of experience through your self-study?
Yeah, through my self-study, yeah.
Okay, and so the question is
is it really important, even at the level of Mahayana, like not Vajrayana, to base any of our understandings of the Dharma on the oral lineage of interpretation?
당운에 맞소 certain가 로트라가 로트라 총총 로트라 정아 로트라 쳔보 네 점직 받은 버런 바강이나 길근 맞대나 네 certain가 티 팁텔라 때는 잠즈고 여보즈다리 시탑고요 말에 된 잠보는 거 데레 롤릭데레 다 대마엔 방아 송거 베르나 만바에나 자가 모자 칼로라이나 자가 타 동원에 끝나 길근 아마때나 길근 거 락차 때문에 대 여보즈다리 시기요 말에 대당 자와가 아주 나추대양 지금 랑크르 다 시샤 앞에나 롭자가 롭텝테 오네가 나추가 다리 난돈도 잡고요. 이 난돈데 잡고때 오네 장내가 그 개유신인데라 도마 땡고래. 가테때 마스테는 랑크르 다지 그런 거 빼먹보즈가 딴쪽에서 있니나 이 쇼담고 다 당사 점직과 먹보즈 거는 측담스 그 코나 점직 막도 되면 돈데 고고 말해. 그러나 도그스간나 니돈다 장돈데게 공바다 랭공데게 되네 생각하면 타 즉서르지 타 즉서르지다 차스도 몸부즈고 거래. 대소 게시연이 남았으니나 장커가 펠로 담스 고고 말해. 텔레장 냠랭 거그 망아 버쳤대나 텔레양 다리가 다 라왕 게시연이 남았으니 장커가 예화도 고토고요 말해. 대나 인치 민치미가 되네 다 냠랭이나 뭐 막고 바래. 텔레장 점주실고 나라나 다지 대 추대가 다 롱다 쳐요타가 게시연이 되네나 되네 점직되라나 할레바가 그 판바요너래.
I think relying on teacher is really, really important. But first of all, I wanted to say thank you for your question. This is a really good question. When we go to school, middle school, college, university, we have to rely on teacher. This is, even a mundane education, one has to rely on a teacher. Then if you're studying like a medicine or even you're learning how to drive, you will rely on an instructor. You wouldn't just, go to pick up a book and do that from a kind of a manual. Therefore, of course, Buddhist teaching is a very unique set of knowledge. It has the relative meanings, as I mentioned before. Then there's the definitive meanings. That's what we're talking about for sutra. For tantra, even much more profound areas of, like instruction that has to come through teacher's pithy instruction, meaning the teacher's experiential instruction. And these are not clearly revealed in books. And therefore, to really learn properly, it's really important for you to rely on an experienced and a proper teacher. Because not mentioning about the general information and the knowledge about Buddhist teaching, especially when you talk about practices. The practices really come from the power of the teacher's pithy instruction. Your realization is pretty much closely related to how you really receive the instruction and how you put this into practices. Even if you wanted to study Buddhism for a scholarly research purpose, you will maybe have a much better result if you rely on a teacher. So there's no question about relying on the teacher, and just relying on a kind of books and essays and articles. It will be very shallow, I think, knowledge.